This local marketing update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter at ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, bringing our weekly local marketing industry update. Now, next week's LMS member call is going to be Wednesday, April 16th at 4 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to listen and subscribe to our weekly podcasts on iTunes, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, this week is going to be an excellent week. It's nice to see that we've got quite a few LMS students on the line today. Hopefully, we get into some of the great dialogue that we've been getting into the last few weeks. It's been fantastic. Some great questions, and definitely know that LMS students are rocking and rolling in 2014 and moving forward. But this week, we've got some announcements to make in regards to the bulk uploads for Google. We'll talk a little bit about that, and that's having multiple locations. A study has come out from a different organization, but it's in relation to local business purchases based off of searches, as well as some additional discussion on Penguin, Google's algorithmic update. Matt Cutts has come out and said a few different things in regards to that. And there's some new features that are also added to Google Places that we're going to talk about and have a little discussion about. And finally, we're going to end the weekly update, at least the call before the conversation, in regards to engagement and what does engagement mean. Now, on that, before I go forward, anybody that's on the line right now, please get onto your computer. I want to hear from your perspective of what engagement means when we're talking about SEO, and they say, hey, you've got to engage with your customers. What does that mean? And I never really thought about it till I had read this study, and I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days as to what really does engagement mean? And I had my own interpretation for it, but after researching and understanding and reading all these different blogs that are out there, I've come to the clear conclusion that nobody really knows and has a clear definition of what engagement means. So I put together a few different things today to talk about, and pulled what I felt was some of the best content to talk about in terms of what engagement is. But like I said, before I do that, I want LMS students, and I want to hear from you guys, and then you can benchmark your perspective of what real engagement is and how important this ultimately is. If you haven't been into the LMS member Facebook group lately, definitely get in there and take a look. Brian was just discussing yesterday, and I think Brian's on the line today too. Let's see here. Yeah. How you doing, Brian? Well, you can't talk back, but you could always type back. But he was, just asking about some tools that are used. This has come up every 6 months or so. We get into a discussion in regards to different video tools and how to create different PDFs and from certain tools and MP3s and MP4s and all of that great stuff. Ragu has had some good discussion. There was some interesting discussion in regards to a graphical ad. I like Ragu. And Ragu has got some really good, interesting perspectives. It's definitely allowed us to create some dialogue inside the Facebook group, but it's a lot of fun. So on that note, I'm just going to take a quick look to see if there's any other issues. And Brian, no, you can't talk back. No, it's not rude. Not on these calls. You can tell me whatever you want, because that's what I do on these calls, is I try to say it as it is. I was just having a conversation with my colleague earlier today, and I'm getting a little older now. I'm 38 years old, and what's interesting in life is how when you're vulnerable, and how the perception and interpretation of people when you're vulnerable. And it's a good thing, but it's also like getting a kick with a golden boot. It's a double-edged sword. And when you talk about and share vulnerabilities, you expose yourself and you expose weaknesses and the opportunity to be taken advantage of. But that doesn't change certain perceptions and why moving forward. But having said that, Brian, I appreciate that you say it's rude to talk back, and yes and no. You're definitely entitled to your opinion, and fortunately at Local Marketing Source, one of the most beautiful things about our community and our group is somehow have attracted the least judgmental people on Facebook. It's wonderful. It's absolutely amazing, and the vulnerability that students starting out their business have provided to help other students is just absolutely uncanny at this organization. It's absolutely unbelievable. But yet we've got some very successful students as well, so it's great. Anyhow, Google I probably didn't turn on my mic here, now I'm going down. I got a new recording system here, and yeah, we're mic'd up. That would be mic'd for the recording, not the live feed. But everybody that's got the live feed, you can have the privilege and see me on my green screen, because once we produce this, but yeah, I think my camera's going on now. There you go. You can see me, but I'm not looking at you there. Now I'm looking at you. But wow, does it ever look different? Oh, how fun. It's amazing what a little bit of technology does. And, like I was just having a discussion, we have these phones, these iPhones, and they've got all these little cameras in them, and even point and shoot, and you got the CMOS sensors, and, they pick it up, and cameras have gone to, what are they now? I mean, like my camera is like 18 megapixels, I believe, 18. But that means nothing. I mean, you swap the lens out, and a 5 megapixel camera will produce and perform a lot better. These new DSLRs that record video, the quality is phenomenal compared to any of the camcorders out there. It's absolutely incredible. But Google upgrades their bulk upload again. Now, bulk upload is used when a business has typically more than 10 locations. Now, in terms of the small business community, there's not very many small businesses that have more than 10 locations. But that's not to say that they don't. I can think of one of my clients, they have 8 locations. And they're about a $15 million company, so they're a good size. But what is the definition of small business? Has anybody ever gone out and tried to take a look at that, or what a small business really is by definition? I should have probably researched this before I go and make any of these claims, but there's, at least as far as the governments are concerned, and I say governments because I'm going to talk about European government as well as the American government. I don't know what the Canadian government says, but they have their definition, and it's based off of employees. And I believe in the United States it is 500 employees or less, and in Europe it's 250 employees or less. So how much revenue can a 500 employee, that may be, I may have that backwards, but let's just stick with 250 employees. Anything, when we say that we service small businesses, we're servicing businesses that are 250 employees or more. Not just your chiropractor's office that may only have 5 employees. Heck, one of my clients here in Chicago that we optimize, that's in the courier industry, if you Google, Chicago Courier Service, they have over 700 drivers. All these guys running around on bicycles all around downtown Chicago and whatnot. But they're still a small business. And they're... they've only got about 50 employees and 650 contractors. So it's kind of arguable either which way. But they consider themselves a small business, and they do almost 50 million in revenue per year. Wouldn't that be nice, huh? Wow. Well, I guess, maybe, kinda. Because I know on the other hand, I'll talk to some of my courier clients, and even one of my buddies, he's got 50 drivers, and he says it's like, the more people you have, it doesn't mean that it's affecting your bottom line. yeah, it's probably affecting your top line, but you're also carrying a lot more stresses along with it. You're also a father, a babysitter. So I don't know if running a 500 employee company is going to be all that it's made out to be. I like things small. Local marketing source. We've only got 2 people. Now we've got contractors that are working for us in different ways, but they come and go. So the bulk upload is for 10 locations or more. Where's my notes here? That was the big point that I wanted to pull out here. Oh yeah, now I'm gonna waste time and I can just sing a song while I'm looking at my notes. Oh yeah. What's nice is there's a status update, and with that status update on all of your locations immediately right there in one spot. Okay, well, there goes one crash with reporting, but there in one spot you can tell whether a business whether the locations are live, whether they're unverified, if they've got different errors or data conflicts. So it's positive to be able to have that feature built in. You don't have to go into each account to be able to manage all of that. All right, study here. Remember when Google released that study that said 97% of consumers utilize the internet to find a local business? It's staggering. 97% of people. Well, there's a little caveat in there that the report never talks about. As a matter of fact, I don't even think I've ever gotten into it. It's not, I don't talk about this when it's a statistic, but statistics are just that. They're highly manipulable. But that 97% is, and that was released, 2 years ago? 97% of people have used the computer at least once in a 12-month period. So not every single time. It'd be really nice to know how often people utilize it. I know for myself, it's 100% of the time. I was also reading something about Yellow Pages today, and how there's a study that's going on. Mike Blumenthal has been doing this for, I don't know, what did he say? Oh, I don't remember. I'd be lying. Let's just assume for 5 years. And he counts the number of pages that are inside the Yellow Pages. And the claim is that the decline in the size of the Yellow Book is starting to slow down. But every year consistently, it's decreased by 10%. So we've really seen that a lot, especially in the last 4 years. It's kind of interesting to think that we're not far away from the phone book just completely disappearing. And while my son is 8 years old, but any children being born today, you're going to have a hard time explaining to them what a phone book is, especially what Yellow Pages are. That's history. It really is absolutely history, and it seems like an old conversation for me now, but yet still to some people. But the interesting thing is people still use the phone book, and we start to look at the demographics of it. It's old people, really old people, and people that are in, interestingly, rural areas, not necessarily that are in urban, in the city and whatnot. I guess people in cities are a little more hip, but that's kind of the nature of wanting to be in a city. And I'll be honest, I'd rather be chopped than wood. But I'll tell you a good use to phone books when the apocalypse does hit. Phone books make really, really good logs for a fire. They burn for a long time. You just wrap them up and put it into the log, and you've got firewood. Which I just threw out some phone books. We just cleaned our office, so the apocalypse better not hit anytime soon here. But the study, 78% of 78% of all searches on Google result in an offline purchase. That is a killer statistic. 8 out of 10 searches result in a purchase. That means 80% of the time, well, not 78% of the time, I'm just going to say 80. 80% of the time, and it works out nice because it's the 80-20 rule. Again, right? We see that in so many different places in our lives, the 80-20 rule. But 8 out of 10 times, 80% of the time that a search is being done, it results in an offline purchase. So you could almost extend that and assume that 8 out of 10 visitors to your website, 8 out of 10 visitors to your website are eventually going to make a purchase within 12 months. Now, we don't close them all. We follow a third of that, 8 out of 10. That's still, 2 to 3? 20 to 30%. So if 30% of the traffic you're looking to convert on your website, we're going to be talking about different factors of relevancy and what should be on a website, and not that it's just a brochure. Speaking of websites, shame on me. Shame on me, because I have been out of the loop on web development in the last 12 to 18 months. And in my company, I've just recently gotten involved with it again, and I can't believe the changes, guys. Yes, I'm familiar with WordPress and all the different CMSs and plugins and templates and whatnot. And yes, I've been educated and understand the implications and the processes for mobile site development and whatnot. But I've just completely changed the website process in my company based off of some research and how we develop mock-ups, for example. Well, one thing I did not know is that during a mock-up stage, we'd go and look at 15, 10, 5 different sites. We'd present a few different sites to our clients. We'd ask them their opinions on colors, and you can go into local marketing source and get the document that's got over 60 different questions. But now, just like you can go and buy themes for WordPress and whatnot, you can buy PSD templates already done for practically every business line that's out there, whether it be a courier service or a massage therapist. You've got a whole variety of visual designs that you can go and pick from. Well, you buy that. We bought one, it cost $10. It was 588 megabytes. So it's a big file. In that file that we got PSDs for about 7 of the different pages, the home page, tier 1 page, tier 2 page, the 404 page, the contact us page, the blog layout. And it's just this beautiful aesthetic design, but not only just for your desktop website, they also give you all the PSDs for tablet and your phone. And based off of that, a developer will then take the PSD, they'll change it to the colors you want, put the images you want, the content that you want. And then instead of just coding it in HTML, you get a custom theme created off of that PSD. Well, you now have a customized theme unique to yourself with a WordPress backend. Maybe we should do a webinar for that. When I talked about the percentage of searches that resulted in a purchase, when we start to look at the tablet versus a phone versus a PC, the propensity to buy is different. And on the mobile phone is where we get the 78%. Okay, I want that to be understood, but it's 61% for a PC and it's 64% for a tablet. I could probably go in and give all my explanations and opinions why. First off, I hate the smartphones. I hate smartphones. I can't say it enough how much I dislike smartphones. Um, I'm going to go on the record right now, guys, and say, guess what? I don't own a smartphone. Yes, Scott Gallagher, internet marketing specialist. I had a cell phone in high school in 1992. I was the first one in my high school. It was one of those Motorola 550 flipped, and I got the nice slick Motorola 650 flip. It's because I worked for Rogers AT&T up in Canada. I had a dealer line, 2,500 minutes. I thought it was the coolest thing. So I've seen a lot, but I haven't had a cell phone for about 4 months now. And the only problem I have with it is, one, it pisses off all my friends and family. Uh, they're more frustrated by it than me. I only get a little bit of frustration because they're constantly, get a goddamn phone. But I'll tell you why. You see, cell phones, God, I could go on and on and on about this. It's just, I don't want to be interrupted. I've got so many flippin' means of communication now. It's absolutely ridiculous. It drives me nuts that, there's these people, everybody can just get in touch with me anytime they want. And then through the cell phone, there's a whole multitude of means of communication. And, it's a personal device. I do miss out on the GPS, I have to admit. But failure to plan is planning to fail, right? You could, actually, God, I do have one. I have an old GPS device somewhere that I could probably install in my vehicle, but it's never been a problem. I went on a trip last year and navigated Newfoundland with an old school map, and I thought, that's it. I've got to do this with my son. We've got to go on a road trip where we're navigating with an old school map. It's like the phone book. There's just certain things. I'm going to be one of these old people that just hold on to some of my old values and say, oh, back in the day. I doubt it. But cellular. But the point is when somebody's searching on a cell phone, uh, the purpose is a little bit different. Think of where you're at. You're either out of your house, because if I don't know a lot of people that surf the internet on their cell phone when they've got a tablet beside them or a PC or a laptop. Those things are just so darn small and tiny, and I got good vision. I got 20/30 vision, and I hate it. I hate looking at them, no matter how big they are. All right, so that's that for that study. There was some additional data on there, but we've already talked about all that, and that's like, what are the important pieces of information on a website, um, hours of operation, and a phone number and whatnot. All right, so Matt Cutts, he sent a tweet out yesterday, and he says that there are different levels of degrees for the Google Penguin update. What does that mean? Well, it's confusing the heck out of a lot of people. Different degrees or different levels. Are you being hit by a penalty? Aren't you being hit by a penalty? Why? Why that stuff is happening? And he gives a little bit of a hint that we've got to read into right now. And with that tweet, he says, I recommend continuing to clean backlinks out. Well, continuing to clean backlinks and different levels of this algorithm say that you've got different levels of penalties that are ultimately being applied, not just a penalty across the board. What could be involved in a penalty? We can speculate, like, let's say length of time, the scope of the penalty. Is it affecting a single page or a single domain? These are probably different factors that Google is is working into. I would even venture to suspect that penalties are being applied. Sometimes you find content that comes up with long tail keywords as opposed to some of your core terms. So I think it's relevant all the way down to the keyword level. I also read today, as far as keywords, I know it's not a big deal for organic search, but for PPC experts, that you know how Google in Google Analytics has started to remove the keyword data. What are we at? Like 85% have not provided now. Well, they've started to do it for AdWords. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, why they're doing that and what that's all about. But that's besides the point. All right, and I want to talk about engagement before we get to some questions and our local business tip of the week. But what does engagement mean? So we got all you guys on the line here. Let me go through what everyone said here. Oh, Ed, that's a great question. I'm gonna have to address that question after this. What else you saying? So you purchased the local Moz yesterday. Okay. Got an email directly from David. He's a cool dude. All right. Everybody's talking about engagement on the internet. You got to engage with your audience. Well, what the hell does that mean? How does a local business engage with their audience? Is it sharing of content? And how relevant and what benefit is it for the business? All right, here's some statistics. With a very comprehensive study that was done by who? By who? Where is your name? Yeah. Andy Klosky. He's got a very, very post. If you went and did a Google search, you should probably check this out. Do a Google search for "I am getting engaged" and then social. You should be able to pull up his blog post. It's a very exhaustive report. But in there was some data that I was able to pull out. For example, 88% of customers say they don't want to engage with brands. You notice I said the keyword brands, because isn't that what engagement tends to help out, is your brand? But almost 9 out of 10 people don't want to engage with a brand. Well, yeah. I mean, do you want to publicly share to the world that you've got what your problems are with your attorney, or the accounting system or operating systems that you may be using? Think of all the vendors that you work with in your agency or your small business. A lot of that is proprietary information, is it not? What about the suppliers of all the food for a restaurant? That's proprietary. So why the hell, as a restaurateur owner, am I wanting to engage with all of my vendors? Well, there's a lot of understanding for that. It just so happens that I work in an industry with my clients and my clients' clients that they're proud to be working with that individual. Heck, the whole reason why I'm trying to focus on chiropractors most recently, as opposed to transportation or delivery companies, is merely my passion for the chiropractic industry. It's as simple as that. A lot of you don't know my little story, but I'll just quickly tell it here, is that my son, on week 37, before he was born, now for all you men, we're quite a few men on the line right now, I didn't know this until I was a dad, but babies are born around week 39. And typically around week 31, week 32, a baby is supposed to turn, from head up to head down, and that's the way they're born. That's the way they're supposed to be born. And if they don't turn, you have two choices from the MDs. You have what's called a cesarean section or a C-section. We all know what that is, or external version. And an external version is just merely, a nurse massaging the belly of the mom to force the baby down, and that apparently that's more painful than birth. Than delivering a baby. So it's not a very desirable choice. So this is the way my son was, but we didn't discover it until week 37, 2 weeks before he was supposed to be delivered. And he wasn't just upside down; he was what's called transverse, so he was sideways, which leads to even more complications. And my sister, being a chiropractor, she taught us about this thing called the Webster's technique. So we went into our chiropractor at the time and we said, "Hey, we need the Webster's technique." And he goes, "Holy shit, what? Nobody's ever come into my practice in 15 years and asked for a specific technique. I mean, there's over 220 different chiropractic techniques. Dr. Larry Webster is the inventor of the Webster's technique. And he went on to say, "Scott, I've only performed this twice in 15 years. All right, that's fine, but what's your success rate?" He says, "Well, they were both successful, but understand that it's not always successful. You may need anywhere from 1 to 10 adjustments." Well, we started to look at the clock, and we really didn't have much time, but let's start to do this. And think of muscles kind of like rubber bands. When you change something, they want to go back to the way they were. Well, muscles are like that when you start to change different things in the body. And the whole theory behind a baby being breech or transverse is that the pelvic region within the mother is not able, doesn't have enough room for the baby to turn head down. It's as simple as that. It's that simple. So he takes his little two fingers and does these little weird massage on the pelvic bones of the mom. And we're driving out of the parking lot 10 minutes later, and she's giggling. I'm like, "What's so funny?" And she's like, "I could feel the baby tickling me. It's turning inside." My son Ashton had actually turned head down minutes after having this adjustment, this painless adjustment. And so we went into when we went in to go see our midwife and the nurse, and the MD had to take a look at my wife, and one nurse was flabbergasted when she realized the baby had turned, and she threw her arms up and created this scene in the hospital, like, "I am in the wrong profession. Why aren't the MDs telling moms about this stuff?" And we were so thrown back by this Webster's technique. It was like, wow, how many pregnant mothers exist? And it's like exponential. I remember the numbers that there's over 100 times C-sections performed on a daily basis in the United States compared to the amount of Webster's technique are being done. Well, people have to know about this stuff. When my daughter goes in, and she's my stepdaughter, and when I met her, she was having 3 to 4 nosebleeds a week. After being adjusted, she doesn't get them anymore. The list can go on and on and on. It's affected my family and me in a variety of different ways that I figure, if I'm going to do something and I'm going to help change this world, I want to work with chiropractors. That's why I'm dealing with chiropractors. It's plain and simple. I can help any small business that's out there, but I'm putting my time and energy into something that I love, and we're rebranding ourselves. So when I get back to 88% of customers say that they don't want to engage with brands, well, when you pull this study down, and I am calling BS on this study, that number has got to be wrong, because they're using examples like, what are some of the big names here? Like Dove Beauty Products, they do very well in engagement. T-Mobile. Well, those are the two examples, but those are big brands. Those are not small businesses. And I have to believe, and I'm a firm believer in the communal effect, that consumers of small businesses are more loyal than consumers of major enterprise. I think that's a fair statement. If you disagree with me, fair enough. But I don't think so. I also believe that there's trends in a lot of places that people are moving more and more towards local, and they get a lot more out of buying local. So even though that we know that engagement is very important on the internet and very important for SEO purposes, um, don't think that your customers don't want to engage with you. Now, what's interesting with some of these big brands, um, 75% of CMOs, that's chief marketing officers, these are the guys that are ahead of marketing. 75%, 3 out of 4 people that are corporate executives in major businesses, the suit and tie guys making 6 figures a year, 3 out of 4 of them say they do not know how to engage with customers. So don't assume that you know how to engage or that your engagement anyhow is any better. But the question is how do you deliver engagement? And engagement, I believe, there's really not a lot that was discussed in this report on how to do engagement. It's almost like this author on him in himself. It says, "Hey, look, I found all this data to show that people don't know how to engage, and nobody's engaging online." But he never really went ahead and said, "How do you engage?" So we got to start to break that down a little bit and make some different speculations in terms of engagement. Well, there's a few things I know. We could take the hero effect. I'm going to use local marketing source you guys are a part of as an example because we have created a hero at local marketing source. You all know who that is. That's Josh Nelson. Now, we just didn't factualize him out of the air, but we leveraged Josh in a lot of different ways to say, look, like Josh had 0 customers 2.5 years ago. He bought the program for $1,800, implemented the program, and now he's a part of my mastermind group. During our mastermind group, we asked, who do you follow? Who do you look up to? And he says, Scott Gallagher. And I think to myself, holy shit. This guy got 5 customers in one day, 2 days ago when we had our call. Last month, he got 13 new customers at $1,800 a month. You do the math. He had a $25,000 a month of recurring revenue to his bottom line in 1 month. And he sits there and he looks and he says, "You're my hero." Well, that's great. He's also my hero. And this is not, of course, it's not, we got to say by FCC rules that that's untypical results. But Josh never got any special treatment at all. He's just a darn good worker. You could take Scott Meadows. I remember the day Scott quit his job. And he sent me an email and he said, it was this long email and a very emotional email. And he's like, "Man, because of you, I'm quitting my full-time job right now." And it's almost bringing tears to my eyes because that's the shit that I love about local marketing source. So today, Scott's crushing it. He's got a nice practice. He's got a new office. He's doing really well. The point being is these are a couple of heroes that we've created and we engage with, and we've allowed that communication, that open flow of information. Well, every business can do this. Every business can identify some of their customers, whether it's your own agency that you're dealing with or your client's business. You see, I personally can be a hero for my chiropractor because I'm happy and he's changed my life emotionally in a lot of different ways. Now, by creating a hero and making a hero accessible through social channels is definitely engagement bait. Ooh, there's a new word. There's a new terminology that we could use in the internet marketing world. I just love how people love to pull terms out of the air and say, well, this is what it is. Barnacle SEO that, and avatar this, and yeah, I'll have my own. And I already forgot it. That's the nature of what it is. Um, But another aspect of engagement, I was taking some notes and put some thought to it. Trust. Well, we could pull out Dan Kennedy's sales books. We can pull out my marketing textbooks. We can go and read documentation of internet marketing online. But what trust is. I think you're going to get the best definition of trust, and I'll tell you some of the best thought processes that I do in marketing. When kind of ironically, when I say the light bulb moment, when it was the exact opposite of the light bulb moment, was when I was in a dark room and I closed my eyes and I thought about what are they really trying to do, and that's I resort to that quite a bit, you know. So when you close your eyes and you sit back and you think, okay, what is trust? Don't think about internet marketing. Don't think about business. Just what is trust? Who do you trust? Do you trust your wife? If you do, or you don't, why don't you? What about your friends? What friends do you trust and what friends don't you trust? I mean, what does trust mean? And what does it take to build trust? Well, one of the biggest factors in trust, I believe, is time. So now, creating that triangle, that visual triangle of engagement and trust and time, don't you think that time is a factor in engagement? Holy cow, wait a minute, engagement. What happens before you get married? You get engaged. How many times do you know people have gotten engaged on their first date? You don't. You court the relationship for a little while, and eventually, if everything's right and everything's aligned, you get engaged. So, I want to challenge everybody on the line, and anytime that you hear about engagement as a factor in the search engines, think about getting engaged with that customer or that client. That's what you need to do. What are the things we do in a relationship before we get engaged? You go out on dates, you show your best sides, you show respect, you demonstrate that you're a trustworthy person, you demonstrate that you're an honest person. You may also want to demonstrate your humor or your humility. I believe that those are all factors that are necessary for a business to engage with its audience online. I feel like I'm on a roll here, guys, right now, because none of this stuff is in my notes, but I'm sold. So, hope somebody's taking notes. Maybe we'll make a really good piece of content that doesn't exist on the internet today, because there's not a lot that discusses on how to engage with a particular audience. But I think if we just think about getting engaged with that client as opposed to engagement, that we're going to blow that 88% out of the water. And you guys are already better than chief marketing officers of some of the major corporations that exist. And how do you build, all of these factors of trust and loyalty and humility and vulnerability? And well, I mean, we've got means of delivering digital content, right? We got part A, the digital content, and part B, delivering that digital content. Part A, creating that digital content. Well, we can start to look at video, visual, auditory, or what's that word, but written. Those are the 4 types of content that we can ultimately create. We know that there's 3 ways to influence human behavior. Everything we do in marketing, we're trying to influence a human behavior of some sort, right? So they say that the words you say represent 7%. Your tonality, I always use this example, I want to go to the store, or I want to go to the store. I mean, I said 2 different things, but just use a very different tonality. And then finally, there's your physiology. And your physiology is, I believe, 55% of the weight of influencing human behavior. Well, video, you have that ability. If you can get on camera, Get on camera. I got a client coming in the office 7 a.m. on Friday to do a video shoot, because I explained to him it's that important as a chiropractor to get out there and start showing yourself, doing it more and more and more. There's my education on engagement. Now we got some questions here, but I'm going to take a 30-second break here, guys, and I'm going to answer. Wow, we got quite a bit being spoken about here, so I'll go through this. But just give. Well, thanks for watching the Local Marketing Industry Update. We've got these things coming out every single week, so if you liked with what you heard, just click the button right above me right here to subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to get a little bit more, right over here, go check out localmarketingsource.com. We've got free reports that you can grab. You can even register for a free marketing course to get in and see the portal. Or just go ahead and follow us on some of the social channels. We'll be around. Until next time.